Alright guys, hope you're all doing well, hope you're all keeping safe. Yesterday we took down Fei Lao, and if you watched my video that I put up, you'll probably saw how disappointed I was with the ending. And if you've played through it yourself, then I imagine a lot of you guys were also disappointed with the ending. Now I did miss the Langley report, which you can get from the cabin, but I've already covered these in a previous video. You're basically kind of 10 reports of the world situation, with each report focusing on different areas in the world. Ultimately, what you learn is that President Ellis is not the nicest person at all, and actually part of me felt like I was kind of on Fei Lao's side in the end. Well, following that video, I spent quite a lot of time on Twitter, in the forums, and generally just on the web looking at everyone else's take, which wasn't great. Aside from the obvious disappointment though, I think most people were concerned that Division 2 truly had reached the end of its lifespan, even me, who's held on to the tiniest strand of hope for some time. Well, I'm pleased to announce that more content is coming, confirmed by Ubisoft in an earnings call. What that content is, we don't know yet, but let's take a look at what's happened. Drop a like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the videos, and let's get into this. This information comes courtesy of a few different sources on Twitter actually, but I first saw this from Twitter user Benji Sales, so all credit to them for this information. Basically yesterday Ubisoft had their earnings call where they kind of talk about how much money they've made or lost, and from what I've tell from the earnings call and looked at, they've actually done unbelievably well. So yeah, there's that. Now usually these earning calls are great for information, because they normally give you kind of a road track of what to expect for certain games. Sometimes you get leaks out of them that you've not heard from the developers, but you hear from the publisher, and that's kind of happened here. So they didn't disappoint. This is what Benji Sales tweeted out following that earnings call. It says Ubisoft conference call confirms Ubisoft Massive will continue to make the new Division content in both 2021 and 2022 despite starting work on their new Star Wars game. Says Massive is a large studio collaborating with other teams and is able to work on both simultaneously. Obi, a friend on Twitter who's been following me for a long time, he's a massive Division person who's helped me out so much. He actually posted on Twitter, he actually uploaded the following as well about this same thing. It says Ubisoft was also asked what impact the Star Wars game will have on development of the Division and whether the older series might be put on hold. It says the implication on the Division, you have to know that the Massive Studio is a large studio and they are also collaborating with lots of other studios all over the world. Lots of inside studios. So you are going to see more of the Division in this year and the year afterwards. So this information has come from Ubisoft CEO, and this all but confirms we are getting new content for the next 2 years at least for the Division franchise. I know a lot of you guys, myself included, are going to be very, very happy to hear that. What that content will be, we don't know at this point. But as I've said previously, I do think we are getting something substantial for year 3. And there's actually a few reasons why I think that. So firstly, I do think that Red Storm are back in some form or another. I don't think it's a coincidence they changed their Twitter banner, and they have a lot of job openings right now. Some are for VR, and those are specifically say VR. Obviously for the VR games they're working on, but there are others for AAA development which may be Division related. If Red Star are back in the game, I know a lot of PvP players are going to be happy about that, because I suspect if they're back, then they are going to be doing something with maybe the Dark Zone and PvP stuff. Secondly, you will note from the statement that they specifically mentioned other studios collaborating with Massive on content for the Division. Sometimes I think it's easy to forget that whilst Massive are kind of the major developer for the Division, countless studios work on all of the content that we get. I think somewhat like 10 to 15 studios worked on the Division 2 for release. If you go back and look at the credits, there is a ton. And there's also a ton of studios that have worked on content since then. So it's very likely that whilst Massive may have had to kind of move people here and, you know, take on work there and whatever, and they've obviously had to shuffle stuff around, which they've said they've had to do, other studios have likely come in to do the majority of the work for year 3. Thirdly, the silence from Massive is deafening. No state of the game has come this week, and no state of the game has come as promised now for over 2 months. Now, whilst I do think this is ridiculous, it's not uncommon. This happened pretty much before Warlords of New York dropped. It's not quite the same now. It does feel like the devs have all but abandoned the game right now, even with the statement from Ubisoft, whereas we knew that wasn't the case at the end of year one. But back then, they did go radio silent. And it was only until about, I think it was something like 2 weeks before year 2 went live, when they revealed Warlords. A lot of this has to do with Ubisoft giving Massive permission to reveal information. I suspect that here, Massive have made the decision not to have another state of the game until they can give us the details on that new content. I understand that position for sure, but I completely disagree that they should just remain quiet. Some time frame on when we might expect to hear something would be ideal, but again, we've still got nothing. We don't even know if State of the Game is coming back, because that lack of communication with us, the players, well, it's just not there. Now, it's very possible that new content is just a repeat of global events, with maybe a couple of new items for year 3. It could be the absolute minimum viable product. So please, I must implore you to temper your expectations. Whilst I'm happy with this news, I'm not expecting anything significant, even with the statement that reads as though we should expect a decent amount of content, especially as it talks about new content for the next 2 years, right? At which point, if that's true, and I'm sure it is, I do expect us to get a Division 3 on next gen only after those 2 years, so in 2023, possibly. Another 2 years would allow most people to get onto next gen, and I think this would be a good window to release the third and I think probably the final game in the series. In the meantime, if that is the plan and they are planning to make more content for the Division 2 for year 3 and what would be year 4, I'd be very surprised if they just kind of went, you know what, we're just gonna give you the global events that you've done for the last year or two, and we're just gonna add maybe a gun here and a piece of gear here. I'd be surprised if they'd done that, if they were expecting us to keep interacting with the game if they are looking to make a Division 3, because people are just not going to do that, right? I mean, if they kept doing the seasonal model, I still think people will keep playing, but I don't think they'll keep playing if there isn't some kind of expansion to the game, which is why I do think there will be an expansion to the game. But that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. If I do hear anything else about what's coming or what's not coming, then of course I'll let you guys know. I'm hoping with this information now out that Massive do have a state of the game next week. Year 3 for this game will be early March, so we're looking about 4 weeks out basically until year 3 would go live. So I'm thinking maybe in the next couple of weeks we do get a state of the game and we do hear a lot more news about what's to come. That's it though, guys. Thanks for watching. Until the next one, Epic out.